Welcome to the Deep Dive. We plunge into compelling topics to get you truly well informed. Today, it's all about travel. I mean, think about it. You step onto a plane, try food you've never seen, ask strangers for directions. It all rests on, well, a basic level of trust. And that trust, as we're about to find out, is exactly what makes us, vulnerable. So our mission in this deep dive is to give you a shortcut. Think of it as a grand tour of deception. We're going to chart how scammers have, relentlessly exploited our curiosity and trust for centuries, and their methods. They evolve right alongside how we explore. This isn't just like a history lesson with old tricks. It's a continuous story. And hopefully you'll gain some surprising facts, some crucial insights into why these scams actually work, and maybe most importantly, how you can spot them. We'll trace this through four main eras, from these really charismatic con men way back when, right up to AI creating illusions today. But the core targets, they're timeless psychological triggers, aren't they? That deal that looks too good to be true, SOMO fear of missing out, that fake urgency, or just wanting something, unique.
Exactly. And what's really striking is, while the methods, the masks, have changed so dramatically, forged papers back then, deepfake videos now, the basic strategy, exploiting our trust, that's timeless. So we're not just looking at what happened in these different times, but why it actually matters for you right now, giving you a framework to understand and hopefully protect yourself.
Okay, let's kick off the tour. First stop, the age of the Grand Con. Roughly, let's say 1820 to 1930. This was really the dawn of sophisticated criminal opportunity. Information moved incredibly slowly. Global travel was just starting for some. We're talking about these big, bold, narrative-driven frauds, often pulled off by, incredibly charismatic people.
It was kind of a perfect storm, wasn't it? Information asymmetry was huge. Basically, one person in a deal knew way more than the other. And if you couldn't easily check something, a clever con artist could just make up a whole reality. And people often bought it because, how could they check?
Right. And maybe the most famous and tragic example is Gregor MacGregor, the Poyais scheme. This Scottish guy calls himself the cacique, like a prince or chief, and he sells shares in a country, Poyais, in Central America, that didn't exist.
Yeah, and his genius wasn't just the big lie. It was the whole elaborate system he built. He published these beautiful brochures, a 350-page guidebook. Seriously, like a lonely planet for a made-up country, fabricated maps showing cities, a flag. He even wrote an anthem, printed Poyasian money. It was this whole world of official-looking, completely fake stuff.
And the results were just horrific. He raised 200,000 pounds in bonds, a fortune back then, attracted hundreds of investors. But the real tragedy, 250 people actually emigrated. They sailed in 1822, 1823, thinking they were going to a developed colony. They landed in untouched, hostile jungle. Over 150 died from disease.
It's such a powerful story of how easily reality could be manufactured when checking facts was hard. MacGregor totally exploited that information vacuum, and the public's sort of fever for colonial investment. And amazingly, he mostly got away with it, even blamed others for the disaster. It really makes you think, doesn't it? Even with all our tech today, could something similar happen if we let our guard down?
That's a chilling thought. So while MacGregor built a fake nation, you had other con artists targeting individuals, particularly wealthy ones. And you can't talk about this era without mentioning Victor Lustig. This guy treated the world like his stage, his most legendary con, selling the Eiffel Tower for scrap metal in 1925.
Incredible, isn't it? And he almost did it twice. He was smart. He used a real news article about the tower needing expensive maintenance, forged government papers, posed as an official. But what's fascinating is his psychology. He picked his mark, André Poisson, saw his insecurity, his desire to be in with the Parisian elite, and crucially, Lustig, weaponized shame. He asked for a bribe. He knew Poisson would be too embarrassed about being involved in corruption to ever report the crime when he realized he'd been had.
Wow, so beyond these sort of elaborate individual swindles, this era also gave birth to schemes that scaled up deception.
Yeah.
Enter Charles Ponzi, 1919. He promises this unbelievable 50% return in just 45 days. How? By trading international reply coupons, IRCs. Now, IRCs were real little vouchers for postage between countries. Ponzi claimed he could exploit tiny differences in exchange rates for huge profits. Plausible, but totally fake.
Right, the IRC trading. Pure fiction. All he did was use money from new investors to pay the returns to earlier ones. It created this absolute frenzy. Greed, FOMO, that fear of missing out just took over. People piled in. But the collapse was fast and brutal. 6 banks failed. Thousands lost maybe $20 million. That's well over $200 million today. And that became the blueprint, didn't it? The archetype for modern financial fraud. And the link between Lustig and Ponzi, it's that their scams were wrapped in this like thin layer of truth, some small believable detail that just lowered people's defenses. We see exactly the same thing today with phishing emails using a familiar company logo, right?
That's a really good point. And it wasn't just these huge cons. Everyday travelers in the 19th century faced simpler stuff too, like the green goods scam in the US selling counterfeit money.
Yeah, that one's interesting because it used the sunk cost fallacy. You know, the idea that once you've invested time or money, you're reluctant to back out. People often had to travel, maybe from the countryside into a big city, for the deal. They'd spent time, spent money getting there. They were committed. Then, using sleight of hand, the scammer would swap the promised counterfeit cash for, like, sawdust or paper scraps in a bag and tell a victim, don't open this till you get home. And just like with Lustig's bribe, the victims were trying to do something illegal themselves, buy fake money so they wouldn't dare report it. Silence guaranteed.
So looking back at this whole Grand Con era, what's the takeaway for us? Well, that old principle of caveat emptor beware clearly wasn't enough. People slowly realized we needed, systemic protections, especially as life moved beyond small towns where everyone knew each other. Which brings us nicely into part 2, the jet age, say 1950 to 1990.
Right, and this is a really key shift. The main threat moves away from individual tricksters towards systemic corporate failures. Travel became more accessible, package holidays democratized it, but that brought totally new kinds of risks. A different sort of scam started to emerge, one born from companies just messing up, but hurting consumers just as badly.
Yeah, jet travel suddenly made tourism possible for millions. You could buy flights and hotels bundled together, super convenient, often cheaper, a revolution. But the companies offering these deals, the tour operators, they were often quite fragile, financially speaking.
Definitely. They often ran on razor-thin margins. They were really vulnerable to economic shocks, that oil crises in the 70s, big currency swings, stuff like that. It created this kind of boom and bust cycle in the industry. And when companies went bust, it was catastrophic for travelers. Take Courtline in the UK, 1974. Second biggest tour operator, it collapsed. Suddenly, 35,000 people were stranded abroad. Another 100,000 had paid for holidays that just vanished. And the protection schemes they had back then, totally inadequate. Overwhelmed.
And we saw it again, didn't we, in '82 with Laker Airways. So Freddie Laker, he pioneered those low-cost SkyTrain flights across the Atlantic. Amazing for travelers. But the airline collapsed in what was called a perfect storm recession. High fuel costs, maybe even predatory pricing by bigger rivals. Thousands lost their tickets. The company owed something like $270 million.
And the point here is these weren't necessarily malicious cons like MacGregor's. It was more like corporate incompetence, maybe unsustainable business models. Fragile structures. But for the person whose holiday was ruined or money was lost, the impact was identical. So the key insight for us today is that these huge failures, these mass disasters, were actually the trigger. They're what forced the creation of the consumer protections we kind of take for granted now. It's striking how often significant regulation only comes after a big headline-grabbing disaster. Courtline's collapse directly led to stronger financial protection rules, reserve funds being required in the UK.
And in the US, you had industry groups like ASTIATA, the American Society of Travel Agents, pushing for ethical standards, and Air Travelers' Bill of Rights. Government stepped in too. The FTC had Operation Travel Unravel going after deceptive telemarketing. And the Department of Transportation, especially after airline deregulation in '78, brought in key rules about being bumped from flights, tarmac delays, having to show the full ticket price up front.
Exactly. All these measures, largely reactive, built the foundation of the consumer protection systems you rely on today. It's crucial to remember these safeguards didn't just appear. They were born from widespread problems, widespread harm, proving how vital they really are.
Okay, which moves us into part 3. The digital frontier, let's say roughly 1995 to 2020. This is where the internet just changes everything, right? It tears down the old gatekeepers, creates this global, anonymous marketplace. Great for legitimate business, but also, well, perfect for wholesale fraud hitting millions at scale.
Precisely. The internet lets scams scale up like never before. Criminals didn't need to be charismatic individuals anymore. They could automate deception, blast it out globally, reach victims almost instantly.
Totally. Think about online travel agencies. OTAs like Booking.com, Expedia, amazing access, so much convenience. But there's the double-edged sword, right? To make things easy and competitive, they sometimes have to sacrifice really strict identity checks for that smooth booking experience.
And that vulnerability, that became the playground for the modern digital scammer. We saw fake websites, mirror sites like, Delta Airlines-flights.com or something, looking totally real. You'd book and pay thinking it was legit, but the reservation never existed. Then there's phishing. And account takeover ATO, that's huge. Criminals trick you into giving up your login details, maybe with a fake login page, then they take over your travel accounts.
Wow.
ATO alone accounts for something like over 60% of travel account fraud.
The numbers are just staggering. Global losses in recent years, $21 billion. Airlines lose $1 billion a year just from payment fraud. Loyalty program fraud, stealing points, that's another billion-dollar industry. The FTC got over 55,000 travel fraud reports in just 1 year, 2023. It's basically created this hidden trust tax for all of us. You suddenly have to be your own detective in this huge anonymous digital world.
Yeah, connecting that back, it's a massive shift, isn't it? From trusting maybe a local travel agent you knew to navigating this vast, often hostile digital space where proving who's real and who's fake often lands squarely on you, the individual.
And here's the thing. While digital scams exploded, the old school street scams, they didn't vanish, they just adapted. You know, the accidental coffee spill on your shirt as a distraction, the friendship bracelet scam, the fake monks asking for donations, still happening. They still prey on distraction, social awkwardness, being in an unfamiliar place.
But technology gave them a boost too, that universal taxi scam. Now, drivers might coordinate using phones or apps, working with networks of overpriced shops or restaurants to steer tourists toward ripoffs, or the gemstone scams in Southeast Asia. Scammers can research targets online, maybe solo travelers sharing their plans, then use the internet to create fake reviews and websites for their bogus stores, making them look legit. And timeshare fraud. That's evolved massively. It's gone from just high-pressure sales tactics to these complex, multi-stage international operations, sometimes run by actual organized crime groups. They hit older people disproportionately. Maybe first with a fee to supposedly resell your timeshare, which never happens, then another scam company calls a recovery firm, promising to get your money back. For another fee, of course.
Yeah. And then there's the payment method of choice for many scammers now.
Hey.
Cryptocurrency. It's appealing to them because it's, well, semi-anonymous. The transfers are often irreversible, instant, international. And there's less oversight. Kind of completes that frictionless fraud loop for them.
It does, and that's a huge red flag for you as a consumer. If someone insists on payment via crypto or wire transfer or even gift cards, alarm bells should be ringing loudly. Plus, crypto itself is now the bait in scams. Fake trading platforms or those awful pig butchering scams where criminals build up trust, often romantic trust, over weeks or months, only to convince the victim to transfer their entire life savings into a fake crypto investment. Devastating.
Which brings us, rather unsettlingly, to our final era, the horizon of deceit. Now, 2020 onwards, into the future. This is where AI changes the game again. It's moving beyond just fiddling with information to actually fabricating reality itself, undermining our most basic ways of checking if something's real.
Yeah, we're stepping into an age where AI can generate incredibly realistic, incredibly personalized content automatically at massive scale. It's not just about scamming a system anymore, it's about manipulating people directly, tapping into emotions, relationships, trust in a whole new way.
Think about deepfakes. AI voices that can perfectly mimic anyone. Customer service agent, hotel clerk, even your boss or a family member. We're already seeing these high-tech grandparent scams. A frantic call sounds exactly like your grandchild, desperate, needing an emergency wire transfer right now.
And it's not just sound. AI can whip up flawless fake websites in seconds, create photorealistic videos of attractions that don't even exist. Remember that Quack's Skyride hoax?
Okay.
A totally fictional thrill ride in Thailand promoted with realistic AI video. People actually started planning trips to go there. That fundamental idea, seeing is believing. AI is making it obsolete. We're also seeing virtual kidnapping. They clone someone's voice, maybe an executive traveling, using samples from online talks or calls and call the family demanding ransom, making it sound like they have them.
What seems really dangerous about these future scams is how effective they could be when we're already stressed or distracted. Like, imagine your flight is legitimately canceled. You're stressed. Then you get a text or a call, sounds perfectly helpful, maybe uses info scraped from your social media, offering a quick rebooking link. If you just pay a small fee now, it's designed to hit you when your guard is lowest.
Absolutely. Which means we're heading into a new kind of arms race. We'll need AI fighting AI defensive tools, using deepfake detection, analyzing behavior patterns online, behavioral biometrics, flagging weird payment requests. It'll be constant back and forth. And regulation will struggle to keep up, but we'll probably need things like laws requiring digital watermarks or clear labels on AI-generated content. Industry collaboration to share threat info will be vital, too.
But tech and laws, they can only do so much, right? The human element remains absolutely critical. This new reality, it really demands a fundamental shift in your own awareness, your digital literacy.
Couldn't agree more. Your best shield, ultimately, is education and just critical thinking. You have to approach unsolicited digital stuff, emails, calls, texts, with deep skepticism. Verify information through separate official channels. Never just click a link in a message you weren't expecting. Be super wary of anything pushing fake regency. And never, ever give financial details because someone unexpectedly contacted you. Really thinking about the source, the context, that's becoming an essential survival skill for the modern traveler.
So we've covered a lot of ground today. Quite the journey. From Gregor MacGregor's absolutely audacious cons and Ponzi laying the groundwork for financial scams, through the big corporate collapses of the jet age, the scaling up of fraud with the internet, and now looking ahead at AI actually fabricating reality. It's been a lot.
It has, and through every single era, that one constant truth keeps popping up. The tools change drastically sometimes, but the core target, it's always human psychology: greed, fear, ambition, wanting things to be easy, wanting a great experience. Those very human traits, they're just as exploitable today as they were hundreds of years ago.
So what's the final word for you listening? This deep dive, this history. It isn't meant to make you afraid to travel or explore. Not at all. Think of it as a call to become the vigilant traveler. By understanding this history, by being critical, by questioning what you see online and offline, you can navigate this complex world with confidence. The grand tour of deception, it's definitely going to continue. But with vigilance, you don't have to be an unwitting participant. So maybe the final thought is, what's one thing you'll do differently, starting right now, to protect yourself and your next travel experience?